Extra, which is an extension of Good Morning Uganda. Now, we are here every weekday from 6:30 till the hour of 9, and then we continue with the Extra up to 10. I'm Robert Cherabo. Cannot forget to thank you so much for your time and being with us. And of course, many that send us messages in the agenda. There were very, very many messages that came in regarding the topic that we were discussing. Now, today we want to move to issues of economics and the budget. Now, just to take you back, President Yoweri Museveni returned the Appropriation Bill 2024 to Parliament after citing that some funds to a tune of 750 billion were reallocated by Parliament without following formal budget procedure. If you remember that letter that was circulating, he mentioned key areas, a tune of 750 billion. He believes were not allocated or were allocated in a manner that didn't follow procedure. Now today Parliament will come out of recess to discuss this issue, and that is to reconsider the Appropriation Bill 2024. Now, joining me on set this morning, I have Pascal Mohangi, who happens to be a lecturer. He's an economist. That is at MUBS, if I remember very well. But he works with CESPAC, which is Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. Now, when you hear Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, that means a consortium of non-governmental organizations whose focus is on the budget. Pascal, you're most welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for hosting me. Good morning, Uganda. Good morning, UBC.
Now, to begin with, when we see His Excellency citing about 750 billion shillings and saying, no, this is something of concern and returning the budget. But also, I just want to take you back the memory line, that we've also had challenges. I remember in financial year 2023-2024, when we were having the budget process, at the last minute, we had issues cropping up that had to be included in the budget. This last minute. Now, many members of Parliament also wonder how the executive, most of the times, we had it 2022, 2023, 2023, 2024, and they were raising concern as to why the executive presents vital documents to defend the national budget in Parliament at the last hour. Now, we want to look at all these, beginning with the President's move to return the Appropriation Bill for 2024.
Thank you very much, and you have given a very good background to what is actually happening. The President returning the budget to Parliament. That is like the outcome of everything that has been happening around the budget process. I think even for us to get here, it started way back because I remember when we looked at the National Budget Framework paper in December, it had 52 trillion. It later increased to 58, then one day, to the day when the Parliament was going to sit and approve the budget, we had a 14 trillion corrigenda and addendum that raised the budget to 72 trillion. Now, to have a 14 trillion corrigenda one day, hours to the budget approval by Parliament. Clearly, it shows you that there was someone, this was an intended move. Someone didn't want the Parliament or citizens to look at these changes and maybe scrutinize them. And that is one of the problems. Probably even this 750 billion that the President is citing or flagging could have been put into the budget in that chaos of adding the 14 trillion.
Now, legally, is there an objection for a corrigendum to a budget?
No. As long
or
as
time limits to when the corrigendum could come in?
The time limit, as long as the Parliament has not approved the budget, all permanent secretaries or votes are allowed to make changes or corrections to the budgets they had submitted. But much as it is within the law for you to make changes at any time before approval of the budget, those changes you make are supposed also to be scrutinized and approved by the Parliament. So if you give 14 trillion budget, I was looking at the schedule, the agenda schedule, and it had 112 votes. 112 votes making changes to the budget. And you want the parliament to look at those votes, those changes in less than 12 hours. Clearly, you can see it was impossible for parliament to look at these changes and approve them in a proper manner. And that is why, probably, we are seeing the president flagging this 750 billion that he thinks was approved not in consultation with the executive or not in the proper manner of approving budgets. That is the problem. So the entire process of the budget process, starting from around March, we started seeing shifts and changes that were not proper. They are within the law, but you can do something legally but morally wrong.
Yes, definitely. What is legally right,
yes, and
may not be morally right.
True. Yeah. So I think that was the issue. And for me, I feel happy because the president coming out and saying this is wrong, we cannot approve this. That is perfect.
Now also have an element of time.
The element of time.
Today is second.
True.
The financial year must have kicked off.
True.
So what does this also mean at such a time?
The president has, within the law, he has provisions of approving payments up to 4 months from the consolidated fund for government to start financing projects up to 4 months. So he still has the period of 4 months, he can approve payments. But for me also that is a concern, because if you are saying the budget is wrong, because for him to reject it, that means there is something wrong, then we go ahead and approve these payments. That means we may approve some budget lines that have issues. So for us, we think it would be appropriate as Parliament considers the budget in case, because we don't know the outcome, what the outcome will be. There's a possibility that the Parliament can maintain its position because it is an independent, it is one independent arm of government. It can maintain the position. The president can also maintain the position that he has. So right now we don't know the outcome. But in the worst case scenario that we don't get the budget approved, the president still has provisions in the law to approve payments up to a period of 4 months. But it may have an impact on, of course, service delivery and government work. One, the accounting officers may not commit government on different projects because they don't know what the outcome will be. If you don't have an approved budget, right now we don't have an approved budget. So if you're an accounting officer, how will you commit? Maybe you're doing procurement and you commit to procure when you don't know the outcome of the budget will be. Probably the outcome can be that your resources will be shifted to another entity. So that could cause confusion when it comes to actual delivery of services, but also delays in the release of money may have an impact on budget performance. We expect by 10th of every quarter, Minister of Finance to press a button and money goes to different entities to start implementing. Now, if that doesn't happen because of the current processes, that will cause a delay in the release of funds for implementation. And that will have an impact on the overall absorption of funds, which comes back to budget performance. And over time, we have seen the Auditor General flagging, both at national level, at local government level, low absorption of funds. You see what is happening with public debt. Having money that you have been contracted to take, but you don't take it and you start paying commitment fees on that, it can also be an issue because of this. So it has a lot of implications, and how it's going to be handled is very important for those specific things I've talked about. So we need to make sure this process, starting today, when Parliament sits and they reconsider the budget, they send it back to Parliament. We should ensure that there is efficiency, it is done in a timely but accurate manner. I think for me the accuracy is the most important. To make sure that when we finally have a budget, it speaks to the needs of the Ugandans. It speaks to the needs of the citizen down there. Not having people budgeting for themselves. You've had such incidences. So for me, that's what I can say about the implication of these days we are seeing.
Now, let's look at the budget process itself. There has been a lot of transparency.
True.
and public involvement, because today the budget process begins very early.
True.
It's all involving, though sometimes you question the technical know-how and ability of people that are consulted. I've ever attended some district councillors' budget conference, and I must tell you, apart from some getting allowances, it's not to demean them, but this is the reality. And having a good meal and all that, there wasn't so much of value, I believe, they contributed toward the budget. It was more the facilitators, and then plus other. I think the only area where I find in the budget process is at the level where civil society come in. Because at least for you come with the expertise, you come with that, you critique, you scrutinize, and you bring in a lot of, but this budget process, much as it's all involving, are we really getting value? Or does it at the end of the day remain at the hands of the technical staff and the parliament, of whom even many could not still have so much input?
Uganda's budget process and the entire budget ecosystem has been very transparent, and that one I credit Minister of Finance and the stakeholders for involving the citizens, involving different stakeholders, but also making sure there is transparency. Previously, I have to emphasize that. Because the budget start, right from August, September, when they start consultative meetings, they go down to the local governments, and right from the sub-county, there is a budget conference where citizens can come and air out their priorities. The purpose of those meetings actually is for citizens to come and air out what they think their priorities are. So they are priority setting meetings or conferences. And it has been happening very well. Now the challenge is when we start moving to the tail end of the budget process. Now that is where it starts getting complicated. The issues of agenda, the issues of addendum start coming in. And the challenge is now you start bringing in things that the citizens cannot scrutinize. You have a agenda that you bring one day to the approval of the budget.
How many items? 100 and?
They actually votes. Each vote can have several items. 112 votes. I was looking at the schedule today. 112 votes made changes one day to the approval of the budget.
And who could scrutinize that?
No one. You need a lot of time. Parliament needs at least 2 weeks to look at such a agenda and make sure that whatever changes are being made, they are actually speaking to their priorities first of government, because government has priorities. The issue of the president saying you are allocating funds, not following the government priorities. It could have been sorted here if Parliament had time to really look at this core agenda, scrutinize it, and make sure that whatever changes are being made are not in contradiction with NDP, which speaks to the priorities of the country, but also on the overall, on the overall priorities of government for the coming financial year. So the budget process being very transparent, and recently we saw that open budget survey, ranking Uganda on top of East Africa, which is a very good thing. But there's a risk that the citizens are starting to lose trust in the budget process. And it starts with such things, such small things. The president is rejecting the budget, you bringing up certain things at the tail end of the budget process that the citizens cannot.
We have parliamentary committee members now hassling and tussling it out in courts of law.
Yes.
For over having wanted to get 20% of a budget of the Uganda Human Rights Commission. I don't know how much money they were going to get. Should that could that have seen the light of day? And that could be one example. One example, yes. So if you take 20% of the budget, 72 trillion, do you know how much money that could be? So because you don't know, that is just one-sided example. We don't know what has happened previously, or maybe what other entities are keeping quiet. Yes. So it is a huge, it is a large-scale problem that needs to be addressed with urgent measures to ensure that we maintain that trust that we have built previously in the budget process, especially among citizens, because they are the key stakeholders of this entire process. Let's look at public awareness and interest in not only the budget process, but the budget itself.
True.
Today, many Ugandans would be eager and interested to know what is going to be the outcome of today.
True.
But when you move around and do a random survey, you can ask how many Ugandans are aware that today Parliament is meeting to reconsider the budget for financial year 2024-2025. It is a very big deal.
True.
But we don't see this in the lives of many Ugandans who are concerned. It remains for CS bag, for us in the media, for a few maybe who have interest should this budget pass, that I expect if this budget is returned to Parliament and maybe passed as it is, I supplied government, I work with government, but general concern and awareness and interest.
I think we would have a divergent view from yours. I think it is public interest. Where I work, because now people know that I work in the budget space, people keep asking you now, what is the outcome of this? What is the outcome of this? What is the impact on service delivery? So I think people are interested. The challenge is that they don't have avenues through which they can maybe show their interest or maybe address their interest to government or parliament. They don't have those channels. If those channels were there, maybe we could see the public interest. Because people feel they are resigned. They feel like they cannot do anything. And that's why probably you're saying there is no interest. Someone knows that even if I speak, maybe there's nothing that is going to be done. Something like that can cause such a situation where I see people seem not to be interested. But ideally, so everyone should be interested in the budget, because the budget is the most important policy in the country. Can have so many good papers, so many policies. If the budget is not right, all the other policies are not important. The budget has about three importances: the issue of allocation, guiding private sector on where to invest, because it is a signal. The budget sends a signal to the private sector where the government priorities are, and in most cases, that is where the private sector puts the money. So there is a lot of interest in the private sector, there is a lot of interest in the civil society, there is a lot of interest in the citizens themselves, the service delivery recipients. I can give you an example. There is a bridge in Mbarara, Nyakambu. That bridge has been bad for a long time. When this budget was being read, someone called me from there, because he knows me, say, is that bridge in the budget? Someone from the village, have they budgeted for our bridge? Because people have been rotating around it for a very long distance just because the bridge was impassable. You can imagine.
That someone, those that have been in the budget consecutively, budgeted for are not.
Now that is another case. That is now another level of the problem. Yes. So people have interest. People have interest. And it is government's responsibility to make sure that people's interests are addressed along the budget process.
Now, when we look at the budget for the financial year 2024-2025, of course, it's been returned, and we wait for the outcomes from the August House today.
True.
The president sensed or smelt a rat and said we cannot allow this to happen. The 750 billion, the way they came into the budget, and even the reasons to why we have a tune of this. Some he said, no, we cannot spend these amounts of money on this. We have a number of universities. Why should we give one university this number? And so many gaps that he pointed out. But in your analysis, the budget as it stands today, is it a pro-people budget? Is it a practical budget?
The budget, first of all, when you look at the budget, about 37 trillion, these are statutory expenditure. That is expenditure that cannot be touched by parliament. No one can appropriate on it. It is gone.
Statutory.
Like interest payments, those government responsibilities that cannot be changed. So first remove 37 from the other 72, you see what is going to remain. Then you go down what has been allocated in different programs. I'm happy human capital taking the highest allocations. But for me, I always want to look at the detail. What is being funded within human capital is the most important. How much is going to UPE? And what is the per capita expenditure? on school, on education. UPE, 20,000 per student, per people, for 3 months. Is that enough? Is that what we can do best? Vis-a-vis how much is being put on travel, special meals and drinks? So, answering your question, if the budget is pro-poor, I would say no, because of how where the government is putting the money. We have critical sectors: education, health, infrastructure,
social protection.
And we are not seeing government putting money. Early childhood development, government not funding such critical interventions. UPE is a good example of where the government priorities are. If you say that you're going to educate, you saw what the census brought out, that 50% of Ugandans are children below 18 years. But the money you're putting in UPE is 20,000 per term, 3 months. Divide it, it's about 7,000, if not 6,000 per month. That this child, a Ugandan, is going to survive on 6,000 for 30 days. That is what the government is investing in educating that child. But when it comes to things like special meals, travel abroad, you put 200, 300 billion. So I don't see the budget speaking to the priorities.
So have mismatched.
There is a mismatch between what the government says are priorities and what is actually funded. So the budget is not pro people.
Now,
I think, and for me, there is a chance, there is a window, there is an opportunity for Parliament, because now they are reconsidering the budget. They can still make it pro-poor. I mean, yeah, pro-poor and pro-people. They can make these adjustments now. They have that authority to appropriate. Yes.
If they have the time, because I was looking at even why we have sometimes they complain that the corrigendums also coming late. That is one thing.
True.
But also when you look at what the duty ahead of them, the task ahead of them today, if first they have to look at the exact complaint by the president.
True.
His observation, the 750 billion shillings.
True.
I highly doubt if there can be an opportunity then to scratch through and see any other changes away from those specifically cited by His Excellency. So my hopes are not as you have your hopes. I think my hopes are either what of this 750 can we maintain, what can we drop? Or are we to drop everything? But thinking of any more scrutiny, I highly doubt that can happen. It is Good Morning Uganda Extra. I'm Robert Chirabo Nyonyitono, and I have Pascal Mohanji, who happens to be an economist with CS Back Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. An economist, he also lectures economics in various universities, and we are looking at today where Parliament is resuming to discuss. That is the Appropriation Bill 2024, which was returned to Parliament by the President after citing about 750 billion shillings that he doesn't believe due diligence was done for us to arrive at the tune or to allocate money of that tune by Parliament to the various sector where this money was allocated, and if that procedure was followed. So today we await upon Parliament. The Speaker called them from recess, and we want to see what are going to be the outcomes. Are they going to retain this money? Are they going to chop it? And if so, whatever the outcome, when it's referred to the President again, is he going to sign, or are we going to be in this dilemma of looking at the grace of 4 months by His Excellency and wonder what next? So today is a very important day for you to follow the affairs of Parliament, what will be transpiring in the August House, and know better, because this is our expected income and planned expenditure. Of course, we know our development partners will sweep in. We know our Uganda Revenue Authority will have to meet its target. And so I want to bring in Pascal. You cut a coat according to your piece of cloth.
True.
Now, when you look at what you are intends to collect, of course, most of the times here they have surpassed their target, they have done us proud. Do you think our domestic revenue much as we had new taxes coming on board, will be able, URA will be able to meet its target?
Looking at history, previously, they have not met the target. They have been performing at around 95, 90-something percent. I don't remember here when they have maybe gotten a 101% or maybe 100%. So, URA may not meet the target. And URA not meeting the target, when you look at the financing of the budget, URA, domestic borrowing, domestic digital financing, project support, budget support, for me there is an issue there where the government plans to get the 72 trillion from. We have domestic borrowing growing from 3 to 8.6 trillion. Government is going to withdraw 8 trillion from within the financial ecosystem of Uganda. That money was there for the private sector that we are going now to borrow and use for government operations. What is going to happen? We are likely to see interest rates going up.
Definitely, because every bank or financial institution would prefer doing business with government.
True.
More than you, an individual.
Government cannot afford it. If you borrow to government, you're sure that you're going to be paid back. So if Pascal presented himself to any bank, and when I'm there, government also comes, they'll first attend to government. And for me, I'm more riskier. They'll give me at a higher interest rate. So we are saying we want a private sector-led growth. That's the language of government. But on the other hand, we are increasing domestic borrowing where the private sector growth should be coming from. So in other words, the signal we are sending is that we are going to reduce borrowing or money available for private sector to grow. When it comes to issues
then
of
also
debt,
maybe one would say that even what government is borrowing, because we are seeing a recapitalization of Uganda Development Bank.
True.
That is money that maybe has better terms for the private sector to go and borrow and use.
And how many can access it?
And we are also seeing more money that government is getting to inject into other programs that promote growth. You're having more money to the parish development model, the 39%, who are out of the money economy. Government is looking for to inject there so much more money, and other various programs that are aimed at giving people and creating wealth.
So if I may ask a question, and not you, to anyone, if there is money from if I'm a business person and there is money here for me, I can go and access. Now the government comes and says, no, let us remove this money, we put it into another system for it to come and access it. It is easier for me to come and, I think the private sector is better when left alone to operate. Those interventions you're talking about are targeting the 39% Ugandans that are not in the money economy.
Money economy, yes.
But most of these loans are targeting a different group.
Yes.
They are targeting people in business. Those guys are already in the money economy. And those are the people that create growth. The
because
CBD,
they are taxpayers as well.
Uganda's growth comes from the CBD. The GDP of Uganda is, the trade is here. And those are the guys that need the loans. I agree. These social programs are very important. The PDM is very important. These all recapitalization of EDB is very important. But it shouldn't come at the cost of reduced access to credit by the business people. I think we can have both work. We can have the social interventions, but also ensure that the private sector is accessing affordable credit. We are not crowding out the private sector.
Well, we are still discussing the 2024-2025 budget, where today Parliament is going to be reconsidering the budget as returned to them by His Excellency to ensure that things that he believes were not really arrived at right are clarified, and we have a better budget than what was sent to him. Now, will Parliament consider these changes? Will this produce an avenue even to better scrutinize other sectors maybe, or will it only focus on the 750 billion that the president highlighted and believed the appropriations were not the best, and either we could eliminate them or maybe see a few reduced. Well, allow me to go for a very short break. When I return, I and my guest will still be discussing more regarding the president sending back the bill to Parliament, but also what are the likely outcomes and how are they going to affect you as a Ugandan in active business or as a taxpayer by what you purchase. We return.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Hey, business people of Uganda, the Ugandan National Lottery is coming. It's the perfect opportunity to boost your business. Zimba your business by becoming an authorized Uganda National Lottery agent. By paying a security deposit of just 250,000 shillings, you will receive your very own Uganda National Lottery terminal, expert training from the pros themselves, and marketing materials to skyrocket your sales. And with a generous 5% commission on every ticket sold, the potential for earnings is limitless. Don't miss out. Act now and call us toll-free at 0800 33 44 33 to see if you qualify. Join us today and Zimba your business. Ituba Uganda is regulated by the National Lotteries and Gaming Regulatory Board.
Once upon a time, there lived identical twins who gave birth to beautiful princes and princesses.
Their mothers gave their babies' bodies a lot of care by applying on their skin with baby Junior jelly.
Though dried their targets and everyone would admire their glowing skin. Fun fact, Baby Junior prevents diaper rash, dry and sensitive skin.
Moms all over Africa love baby Junior jelly. Baby Junior's the skin. No more worries anymore. Boo, 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 boo. Baby Junior.
Baby Junior.
Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja to the town or city near you between July and December this year. Don't miss Uganda's beautiful stories from east to west, north to south in Tuko Pamoja.
Uganda as we see it today never had a name. It had the regions that make it.
The battle for protecting the sovereign Uganda was lost in Dokolo.
Uganda, fortunately for us, is a confluence of all these races, the races of Africa.
Bunyoro would have simply created an East African community that we are looking for today.
The rulers of Bunyoro are actually Iluos.
Genetically, we are even similar people.
We are one. Use that word pamoja.
To get a ticket, call 0778 787 660. Tuko Pamoja?
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Much thanks for being with us on UBC TV. The Extra, Robert Chirabo Nyonyitono with Pascal Mohanji, who happens to be an economist with Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. We are discussing the budget for the financial year 2024-2025, knowing that today Parliament will be sitting to consider the areas where His Excellency raised concern and returned the budget to Parliament to a tune of about 750 billion shillings. He believes proper diligence was not done, and also the process. And maybe this money is something that wouldn't be in the budget in the first place. But we wait to see the outcomes of Parliament and what this will mean to you. But even before we go to that, we want to look at still this very budget. For about 3 consecutive years, debt servicing has become an issue. It is something that is taking a big portion of our budget. True. That much as we expect a 72 point something, a big chunk of this money will not go to service delivery, but to debt servicing now. I've spoken to some analysts that say why even we are seeing our budget raising to these very big figures is the fact that we anticipate and expect our first oil to be out by 2025. Now, when we get oil, we automatically know that even if we have borrowed, we will have monies to pay our debts. And of course, this is something that many Ugandans are very hopeful that should we have our first oil, well, borrowing, we have enough money. Once you have oil, we have enough money, you know? But still there is a fear. We've had extensions. Supposing we borrow this much to have this first oil, and I'm not a prophet of doom, come 2025, we cannot have this first oil, yet we're accumulating debt, and we still have to have that this budget may even increase on our debt burden for the next budget. Pascal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chira, for bringing out the issues of public debt and that big assumption that we're going to have first oil come December next year, which is very good if it happens. I think it will be a good thing.
It's my prayer.
Yeah, and everyone should be up about it. But for me, my concern is, what if it doesn't happen? What is government's plan B?
Increase taxes on Ugandans.
What is government's plan B? And we have seen it in East Africa. Our friends,
Kenyans,
in the East, Kenyans, the reason they're having challenges, the protests, the finance bill issues, is because of public debt. They borrowed so much for capital projects,
standard gauge railway,
the ports, and paying back has been an issue. Last year they almost fell into debt distress, and this year they tried to increase taxes through the finance bill that caused protests. It was rejected. The other day I saw the president, Ruto, saying that they need to borrow at least 1 trillion Kenyan shillings for them to avoid falling into a debt trap. So they need to borrow to pay back. So the money they're going to borrow is not for service delivery, but to pay back the previous loans. So you don't want to be in such a scenario. And Uganda is a much smaller economy. You don't want to be in such a scenario. It is good to borrow if the money is going to productive work, productive investments. Quite often we borrow to invest in things that are not productive, but also how we manage the debt. I normally give this example of the Ginger Expressway. That loan for the Ginger Expressway was contracted about 3 years ago. But since then, no single coin has been drawn from that facility. And what happens every year, we pay with what we call commitment fee. Government pays to the lender and say, no, we still want the money, and prove that we want the money, we are paying this sum of money as commitment. That is money you cannot get back. And Auditor General has been citing out such issues, commitment fees, poor project management. You have cost overruns. A project of 2 years is going for 5 years. You know, this road, the expressway, the Kampala, there's this famous road that has taken over 10 years, yet was supposed to take about 5 years. So such issues, as long as you see a project taking more time, that is a cost to government. And the worst thing is that most of this money is always borrowed for these projects. We are seeing on the code agenda, the famous code agenda we had, 14 trillion. 10 trillion of that 14 was statutory expenses, which means if you break it down, you find most of it is going to debt repayments. The cost of borrowing is also becoming an issue. First of all, we are seeing increased domestic borrowing. Domestic borrowing is non-concessional borrowing.
Definitely.
Non-concessional borrowing is borrowing where you're borrowing at a high interest rate with shorter payment periods.
One would call them more or less commercial loans.
They are commercial loans.
Yes.
We are seeing an increase in project support. Project support is also mostly non-concessional. We are seeing a significant decline in budget support. Now, budget support is mostly money gotten from bilateral or multilateral lenders, and in most cases, it is concessional borrowing. It is now at 2% of the entire budget. Project support has increased 12%, 12.5%. Domestic borrowing, I told you, has increased from 3 to 8.6 trillion. Domestic debt financing has increased from around 9 to 19 trillion. But also our own benchmarks, the debt service to GDP, the benchmark is 4.5%. That is what the government says. We shouldn't exceed this percentage. We are now in 20%, 20 and more. So we have breached our own debt management benchmarks. We are not yet in debt distress. But the direction we are taking, if the assumptions do not work, if the assumption of first order does not work, we are definitely going to be like Kenya. They are struggling so much with their debt, and you can see the challenges they are getting because of that. You saw what happened in the last couple of weeks. So we don't want to be in such a situation because of debt issues. So the issue of debt, the issue of first oil being a very good thing, but also what I can advise government now, because we are already in it. We are not going back. Government is going to borrow because there is no way they are going to finance the budget. Borrow, but ensure there is efficiency in project management. You crack down on corruption. Because you can imagine you borrow money that you're supposed to be paying back on interest, and it is taken and stored in someone's home. That is money withdrawn from the economy. Corruption is very dangerous, that it withdraws money from the economy. Someone gets money and keeps it at home. If it was in the bank, maybe. But money at home is money withdrawn from the economy. It is no longer part of the GDP. So it is not helping anyone. It is not in trade, it is not anywhere. Increase the public debt. Debt servicing has a cost. In economics, we call it the opportunity cost. You see, that too much money you see we are paying in interest could be the money that can work on Kampala roads. Now, that is the opportunity cost of servicing debt. So debt has a very huge cost.
Well, I love the way you've explained and given a picture of where we are, and of course prayers therefore are that when we talk about 2025 having our first oil, we do get that oil so that whatever we have undergone in form of loans to ensure that we have that first oil, we have now shock absorbers of the output of the oil. But in case, I don't even want to pronounce that. But we pray we get to that. Now, as we get out of here, Pascal, I want your parting shot, most of focusing in today. We cannot predict. It is in the hands of members of parliament on whether they choose to maintain their position or make some changes or completely do away with the 750 billion. But what is your last message to Ugandans in this dilemma now?
My message to Ugandans and most like the parliamentarians that are going to debate our budget today, whatever decision we make, it should be a people-centered decision. Whatever adjustment that is going to be made on the budget should be a proper and people-centered decision, because those are the people we represent. People-centered budgeting is the message that I can give at Parliament. But also, I would want us to expedite the process in a very fast manner so that we don't affect service delivery that actually impacts the livelihoods of the people that we are budgeting for. So it should be people-centered, but also done in an efficient and fast manner.
Well, I just want to thank you so much, Pascal Mohanji from Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, for your time and, of course, taking us through the budget for the financial year 2024-2025. And what will happen is Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, UBC TV, just stay glued to UBC, because we'll be giving you everything as it happens in Parliament. But also very important to note is, let's always interest ourselves in the economics of our country, because that is the only way we can be able to force our leaders, to hold our leaders accountable on what finally comes out as the budget. See you tomorrow, God willing. Have a lovely day. Keep it with us on UBC TV for God and my country.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Juko.
Yo.
Wachikuwa. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model, PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a poultry project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. But what you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Amanya gange bampita Namutebi Hawa era nsika chips wano mu Lubaga Road B ku Musajja Arumba Flats. Ekibiina kya Parish Development Model kirungi nnyo lwakuba nange capital yali aweddewo naye akakadde akamu ke nafuna yendabika eno gye ndabikamu oba yembere eno levu mukoze eki bwe munsanze sitiiru senga safuna ku kakadde kitegeeza mwalize n'okunnambula nga sina we naye era kannyambye olwensonga nti capital okumpi kata abeerenga yali aweddewo nengattiriza kwaka kakadde okubeera wano wenkola ki wendi era abavubuka mbakubiriza zino sente kale abamu mufunamu okusomoozebwa nga bagamba pulezidenti waffe yatuwa omwaka gumu okuzzayo sente zino ng'ate disitulikiti endala baagiwa emyaka 2 okuzzayo sente nga beemulugunya nga bagamba ffe lwaki ab'e Kampala lwaki ffe be baawa omwaka ogumu okuzaayo ki sente era tufuna okusoomozebwa kwa maanyi nti omuntu omugamba buli Friday aleete sente ze ogumu 2 buli Friday kibakaluubiriza nnyo lwakuba bagamba ffe muzeeyi yatugamba sente za mwaka gumu ng'ozizaayo ng'oteekamu n'amagoba ga 6,000 kati abavubuka kibakaluubiriza ate naffe ne tutuleetera obunkeeke ne tugamba ddala bano abavubuka